We live in really strange times here in America. Depending on how long you've been around, it seems clear that just about every day some lunatic, usually on the left, is going somewhere that nobody would have dared to go just a few short years ago. We see that more and more, and we had a big one just recently. We'll get to all of that. We've got a new segment coming up on the Marty Chronicles. And before we start, as context, I love context. I want you to remember this phrase, quid sum absentis. We'll get right to it. Welcome to another edition of the Marty Chronicles on the Conservative Take platform. I'm Marty Nalitz. Thanks as always for tuning into the platform for really good content. We've been on a bit of a hiatus here at the Marty Chronicles, and it's going to continue for a few more days, but man, too many things are happening. Yesterday, we had the infamous FBI raid on President Donald Trump's home. There is a lot going on with that, and we're going to get right to it. Remember that phrase I told you to remember, quid sum absentis, and we are going to have another segment coming up here pretty quickly, another new part of this podcast. Let's talk about the Trump raid. You've seen a lot of what's happened by now, and there are some interesting things that I think you need to keep in mind. Number one, and this is in no particular order, but just as I'm thinking about them, it was approved by a Judge Reinhardt, who is a magistrate. Now, if you know anything about our court system, it's a big difference. Article 3 of the Constitution lays out the procedure for the Supreme Court justices, other federal court justices. A magistrate, typically, if you know anything about the workings of the system here in America, typically a magistrate isn't even allowed to hear a felony case. They're not allowed. They don't have enough, whatever you want to call it, clout, juice, or whatever. Judge Reinhardt seems to have a history of signing off on just about anything. And it also, if you're skeptical, you could also make the argument that whoever arranged this shopped to find the right judge to do it, and they found one. It was also signed off on by Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI. A couple of things worth noting. One, he was appointed by President Trump. Keep that in mind. Two, he has been, let's just say, a disappointment. Not just to me, but to people I know that have worked in that system for a lot of reasons. I'm going to go back to what I said a minute ago, that Latin phrase, quid sum absentis. It means, what am I missing? When you see something like this going on, there's something else. It's happening. If they're attacking Donald Trump over here, there's something else going on over here they don't want you to see. And this raid has a lot of different layers to them. Number one, in my opinion, this is a message to all Americans. I don't know how you can read it any other way. And the message is, if you disagree with me ideologically, you're in trouble. That's what it looks like. And I don't see how you can phrase it any other way. I also believe there's a message here to Governor Ron DeSantis. The two Republicans on the national stage that the left fears the most are President Trump and Governor DeSantis, for good reasons. Now, you can argue all day, and at another time I would, that had there been enough time, Governor DeSantis could have, I don't know if he would have, but could have done something literally to stop this raid. In Colorado, for example, the county sheriff could go into any Fed and stop them in their tracks. Not necessarily blow the deal up, but say you're not going any further without involving me in it. In Florida, they have other options that, had there been enough time, they could have done something about it. So here's what I believe with Governor DeSantis in particular. What the left wants is they want him to overreact. They want Governor DeSantis to overreact, that they would then have some headline, some narrative, some news clip that they could use to attack him in his upcoming re-election bid. So they tried this with President Trump. The entire time he was in office, these mostly peaceful demonstrations that took place all through 2020, they were begging him to send in federal troops so they could say, see, he's the dictator we always said he was and we wished we could be. But Donald Trump never did it. I believe they want President or Governor DeSantis to do the same thing. The whole raid is suspect on a number of levels. Number one, what they did was they took out boxes listed as classified material. But here's what they're not telling you. These boxes, this classified material, was examined by the Department of Justice 6 weeks ago. So they took them out for one of a couple of reasons. Number one, intimidation, maybe. Number two, if you're a real skeptic, it's so that in 2 weeks they can say we found something in these boxes that wasn't there when we looked it over 6 weeks ago. Regardless, it's a horrible thing. It's a black eye on America, and it truly has, I don't know how bad I want to make this. You have your own opinions on it, of course, but this is Banana Republic stuff. If you're really skeptical and really cynical, you could also look at it and say, this is the bad guys solidifying their power and taking another step, which I'm going to get to here in just a second. We'll continue to follow this story, as you certainly are, and either Kyle, myself, Nicole, somebody on this platform is going to bring you updates. I want to get to a new segment on the Marty Chronicles that hopefully will become a regular thing, and that is 3 lies that they're telling you right now. There's no shortage of this stuff. You know this. I'm not even going to touch the whole Trump thing as part of this segment. But there are 3 things going on right now that they're flat out lying to you about, because the Democrats or the left only want people that read headlines, and more importantly, their headlines. Let's get to number one. Number one, that big oil, that horrible big oil, has announced record profits for this year. Now, when they say that, of course, the implication is big oil showed these profits because they stole it from you. That's not what's happening at all. Keep in mind, when this regime took over in Washington, they made it clear from day one they were attacking big oil. I live in Western Pennsylvania. Fracking and other drilling was a big job provider here in this part of the world that shut down immediately. Those guys were all out of jobs. So now they're saying big oil because, inflation has driven that price up dramatically. Here's what they're not telling you. Since the administration has cut down on permits, drilling, and gotten in the way of everything else they could do, guess what happens? If you're an oil company and you make money every year, some of that money goes for R&D, research and development. Some of it goes to drill new fields or explore new fields. Good God, watch an episode of Dallas, for crying out loud, and you'll find that out. But they haven't been able to do any of those things because this regime and the Congress has told them, we are going to shut you down. We're going to make your life miserable. So as a result, they're not going and exploring new fields. They're not drilling in new exotic locations. All that money, guess what? It's just sitting there, and it's profit. They distribute it to their shareholders or however they do it. But the implication that they're making big money because this regime has led to gas prices being $5 a gallon is an outright lie. That's number one. Number two, let's get to last week's job numbers. 528,000 new jobs. Hallelujah, Hollywood. That's what they're telling you. Except when you look at it, if you go beyond the headlines and you break it down, you find something out. Guess what? Of those 528,000 jobs, 71,000 of them are new full-time jobs. I don't even know if they're new, or they may have been people that were recalled. But only 71,000 of them are full-time jobs. That's horrible. The rest of them are part-time jobs or people like many of you that have said, with inflation kind of where it is and where it's going, I need to make more money. So many people have gone out and gotten a second job. Literally like 390,000 of them. Of those jobs are either part-time jobs or second jobs for people already working. The job numbers There's a couple of different things you'll see floating around, and I'm going to use a qualifier. I haven't quantified this. I follow a guy named Charles Payne pretty closely because he's usually right on. But some of the things that seem to be true today is, number one, we haven't yet gotten back to the number of full-time Americans working that there were in February of 2020. That's 2.5 years ago, and we're still not back to that point. So any dunking or victory laps these guys try to take is just ludicrous. It's a lie. And let's get to the third one. The Inflation Reduction Act. The people in Washington can't define what a woman is, can't define what a recession is, can't define what inflation is, but they've passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And it's literally insulting. It's just insulting to suggest for 1 second that it's going to bring inflation down. It can't. It literally can't. Let me explain why. The U.S. government in 2021, I don't know if you saw this, took in a record amount of income taxes, more than ever before. Unfortunately, they spent about twice as much as what they took in. So here's what happens. When you have money coming in, if you're the federal government, you have money coming in from, of course, taxes, some tariffs, some road fees, and different things like that. And that is your income. When they say we took in $1.7 trillion in taxes, but the budget is $3.7 trillion, do you know where that other $2 trillion is coming from? They're literally printing the money. When you print that money, guess what happens? Inflation goes like this. So it's insulting to suggest this. And now we're going to add another couple of $1 trillion onto this thing. And they're doing what they always do. They're saying, you know what? You little people, you're not going to pay taxes. It's those nasty, horrible 600 billionaires in this country. They're going to pay it. It's not true at all. If you look at the breakdowns on what's going to happen to pay for this behemoth, it's not true at all. What this attack, this Inflation Reduction Act, what it does, I'll tell you who it goes after. It goes after waitresses that earn tips. It goes after eBay sellers. It goes after cab drivers that make tips. That's who it's going after. Those 87,000 new IRS agents, they gotta have something to do. And there's only 600 billionaires in America. So that pie doesn't divide real evenly. They're going after the people that are doing everything they can to survive, and that's who they will continue to go after. Like I said, it's insulting that they would call this the Inflation Reduction Act, but as we know, the people in this regime have no shame. So I'm going to end with this, what I started with. Quid sum absentis. What am I missing? When they have you looking at this raid and the legality or illegality, the common sense of it or ill-timedness of it, when they have you looking at that, it's because they don't want you looking closely at job numbers. They don't want you looking closely at another couple of $1 trillion that just went on the books. We'll get to this another time. I'm going to end with this. At the end of the day, really, do you know what has to change before the inflation changes and we get back to sanity? Something called the Federal Reserve. We'll spend more time on that in the future. Thanks as always for joining us on the Conservative Take platform.